Welcome everybody. My name is Stephen Wenner with Whistle Realty, brokered by EXP, and I wanted to do a series that I thought would be beneficial for people trying to understand what is real estate like, other than I want to buy something or I want to sell something. So we're going to go a little bit behind the scenes, and I have somebody very special because I work with this organization, and she's kind of the glue, like a fabric that's front-facing for Foundation Escrow. And we have Madison today.
That was the best introduction I think I've ever gotten.
The reason I wanted to do this is because there's only so much production I do, right? But you're working for an escrow company, so you're seeing hundreds, if not thousands, of transactions, right, over a year, and then you also have a history of all of these things. And when I look at the market, I've been in real estate since 1993, so it's been up, it's been down, and I was holding a house open in December, right? I did a broker open house for a property that I have in the Golden Hill area. And let me tell you, nobody showed up except Madison. And it was a really interesting time during November and December because of the presidential election, right? So when you came in, what did you tell me about what you saw? Because you were going to different caravans and you got to sit in on things like that. But what was the market like then, and then what are you seeing now?
Yeah, so I think something to remember, I've been with the company for over 8 years, so I've been through a lot of phases of real estate, and when I came to see you, it was crickets everywhere. I mean, it was slow, listings were sitting on the market longer than, even if they were priced correctly. It was a seasonal thing. I mean, definitely the election. I think also holidays, difficult time to kind of put something on then and draw people in. Historically, yes, inventory has been down, and especially in those last few months, November, December. Recently, I will say now, picking up in January, there's a huge uptick. There is way more on the market, and they're entering escrow quickly. So things are priced correctly, motivated buyers and sellers are there. There's always gonna be motivated buyers and sellers, right? There's always a reason why someone has to buy or sell, but definitely an uptick is going on right now.
Which is what I'm seeing as well, because when we were in December, and it doesn't matter that this happens every single year, you're like, what's going on? And it was just so nice to have that conversation with you and know that it wasn't just me or the marketing, right? And we ultimately ended up taking the property off the market for a period of time so that it didn't collect days on market, look stale. Because the reality of real estate is, from a consumer standpoint, if you see something sitting, first question you ask yourself is, what's wrong with it?
What's wrong with it?
Right? So I'm very pleased to say as well that I've been extremely busy, listed a property, got it under contract immediately, just put another new home property under contract, and working with several owners to put listings on, and then some other clients that are getting back into the market. So that kind of leads into my next question, right? Because inventory trends, I'm starting to get really busy, but as an escrow company, are you seeing a lot more like files open and things like that right now?
Oh yeah, it's crazy. I was just in the office earlier today talking to my escrow officers, doing check-ins, and they go through the same thing, right? At the end of,
where's everything?
Yeah, they're like, it's slow, I need new business, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I can see something from, I watch agents, I watch the market, I see when new listings are coming live, and it is strong.
That's what we all want to hear,
Yes.
right? Because just uncertainty that hits at times, and it's kind of bizarre because we're so used to, oh, I put a house on, oh, I have 9 offers, oh, it's already multiples, oh, it's way over, oh, it's gone, right? And that's in like 3 days. And then it was sitting. So for us, remember that it's kind of like whiplash in the market. You put something on, it was just like, oh my God, we're overwhelmed. Where some agents would actually withdraw their listing from active status because they already had like 20 offers and they didn't want to deal with anymore, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's ethical or not, I don't know. I never did that. But that's what we would see. And then it stopped. So it's really, really interesting to watch it all come back, and it's exciting times in 2025 for real estate. But with one tragedy, I would also say, is that we're also affected by the LA fires, not yet, but my house burned down when I was in my early 20s when I lived at home. And the difference was I didn't have to worry, about a rental. My parents could find something, but with LA, think about the amount of structures that are burnt down, the people that are displaced, and it's still very, very early in that process. So there's a lot of displaced people.
Yeah.
And where are they going to go if they want to stay in Southern California, Riverside, Orange County, and San Diego? And oh, by the way, we have a housing emergency shortage, right? So what's going to happen to our inventory? And that's an unknown. So as our listeners, I just want you to be aware of those things, because honestly, I don't even know. But when you think the law of economics, supply and demand, I don't care what it is or where it is, there's just a universal supply and demand issue. And I think we're going to have a massive amount of people that are needing. And the question is how will our market be affected, to be determined. But I think, unfortunately, multiple offers, people bidding for stuff because we need food and we need shelter.
Yeah.
It's just a human necessity. Another big thing, I know how I deal with it. I'd love your take on it, and I'll explain how I've worked to educate the public. But the commission dispute, right?
Yes, NAR.
Right, NAR. And I think there's still a lot of uncertainty because I explain it like I'm talking to somebody in grade 5, so that
That's the best way to do it.
Right. So what have you seen, or how are your escrow agents dealing with this? Or let's just say the agents that don't necessarily do a lot of production.
Right. So I see it from a few different ways, right? From the escrow side, I am very involved with my real estate agents, especially ones that are heavy listing, where I'm running net sheets for them. In the beginning, I was running net sheets where I'd show them a few options, right? We'd look at the commission still 2.5% or whatever they instructed me for both sides, but also they would remove one side. And that was to only prepare them to go into their listing appointments to best educate their clients. When the news came, it was a shock to everyone, right?
Sure.
But really, agents who have perfected this and been doing this a long time, nothing was really changing. They were still being transparent. They still had to give this information, right? And upfront, that's important. I think that our industry is resilient and we evolve with what we need to, especially agents that are seeked as such advisors like yourself, really educating their clients on what does that really mean? What's really different? Because now, I will tell you, the dust has settled a little bit and nothing has changed. We're still seeing sellers paying commissions.
Right. The hardest part is the explanation to the seller, right? And so I just wanted to kind of quickly explain what that looks like when I'm talking to a seller. So if you're looking to sell a house, if you have an agent that's worth their salt, right? If you're looking for a professional to advise you, that's why we hire professionals, or do you want to advise your professional, which isn't a professional? There's gonna be two different conversations. So when it comes to the commissions, I have to explain that, listen, you and I, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, are going to discuss what we agree upon. But there's going to be a request for commission from a buy side. And initially, the buyer's agent, before a property can even be shown, has to have a signed buyer broker representation agreement. So they've agreed on a number. And then where the industry, I'm uncomfortable with this part, I'm not gonna lie, and it'll never change, unfortunately, is that if I'm on the buy side, I don't know if I'm getting paid or by who, right? So that is an everything transaction every single time. And it's annoying. Because realistically, you want to serve your client, you want to earn what you're worth, and then you have no idea if there's going to be a hang-up or how it's going to get paid, even though the buyer signed an agreement. If the seller chooses to pay that, okay, we're fine. If the seller chooses to reduce that amount, is the buyer comfortable paying the difference? Realistically, if you have to do it and your professional is a pro, or great, but if they're not paying any commission, does a buyer really want to pay? Because our median price point is over $1 million. Do they want to pay 25 grand or 20 grand out of their pocket on top of everything?
So I've had this conversation with a lot of my agents. And again, it comes down to the qualified agents having the support team and really leaning on being creative and finding those solutions if and when that comes up. Now, have I actually seen it come up where the seller is refusing to pay the commission? Not really. If it has, they have found ways where their clients they're working with do see the value in them. they've expressed the value in working with them, that it hasn't been an issue. But if it was, I say that's when you lean on your support team, you lean on your lenders, you find creative ways. So if that does come up, seller's not gonna pay it, this is the dream home, your goal is to get your client that house, that's your role, right? Then working with lenders to find those ways to make that happen and getting creative behind the scenes.
And that's the thing. So in the past little while, I've had 2 transactions. One that I'm actually, they signed the shortfall today. So, right, I have those conversations. I can explain the worth and the value. So in both instances, the buyer has paid the difference. But the thing is if a seller chooses to pay 0 or like 0.5%, we want to represent our buyer and have a fiduciary responsibility to do so, right? But at the same time, I also remember when I was a server a long time ago, and I learned quickly that your tip is not just your tip, you gotta pay the house, right? So when you gotta pay the house, sometimes you serve somebody and you lose money. And we're in business to be professionals, and this is an elevated type of profession because there's millions of dollars at stake. Sometimes multi-million dollars at stake, right? So it's become a conversation that has to be explained properly. So please understand that if you're looking to buy or sell a property, the professional that you work with, if you're not calling me, right, should have a very robust conversation about what all of this looks like, because it can get tangled later. So if there isn't an expectation or a realization, it's more of a shock.
And I have to give you props. You do such a great job setting up your clients for success.
Thank you.
You are so transparent, and that really sets you apart from other individuals in the industry, because there are so many people that do this, but it is the professionals and advisors like yourself that take that time to explain it up front so that it's not really getting tangled later. The expectation is there, the transparency is there, and the value is there working with someone like yourself.
Well, the only time I like surprises really are on my birthday, right? not any other time. So now I want to touch on foundation escrow. So I know why I love foundation escrow, right? And I'll talk about that in a minute. But what is foundation escrow? Not as an escrow company, but as a culture, as a place to come into, as a place that serves. Like, why do you love it here so much? And tell everybody about why, if they work with me, I'm gonna be like, foundation escrow, right?
This is my favorite question. I have been with the company, like I said, for 8 years, and there's a reason why I'm with Foundation Escrow. I believe that it stems from the top. So my core values align with my company's core values. I believe in giving back. I believe in leading with contribution. I believe in building relationships with authenticity. And those values align with my company. I also am someone who likes to find ways to trailblaze and think outside the box and be innovative and forward thinking. And our company does all of that. When it comes from the operations side to my role, which is business development, it all aligns. I think that Foundation Escrow specifically, our technology is amazing. It makes buying and selling simple. That is our motto. We have very, very, very secure measures, which I hate to use this scare tactic, but you have to be educated and you have to be aware that wire fraud is out there, and it is scary and it is a real thing. So we have every measure to make sure that we are not just protecting your clients, but everybody in the transaction. We use something called certified ID that is the most secure way to send wires. It's the only one that can be insured. So things like this that people don't realize when they're just going to open escrow. It absolutely matters that you're working with an established company. Our company's been around for a long time. We are unique because we are an independent escrow company. So what that means is we're not associated with a title company or associated with an in-house brokerage. We're truly the definition of escrow, which is a neutral third party. We focus only on escrow, and that is our forte, and we are exceptional at that. And I think too, for me, being in the role that I'm in, it's all about earning the business and earning those relationships and setting my agents up for success. At the end of the day, the more I can make you look like the rock star in your transaction, and the more deals I can help you get, the more escrows there are for my company, right? So I truly believe in that. And again, one of my biggest pillars is the giving back aspect. And a company so elite like ourselves, that does align. And we have given so much money to different charities, especially the NICU at Rady's Children's Hospital, which is, I know, near and dear to many people's hearts. So this company, it humanizes us, right? We believe in all of these things, and really, like I said, all of our core values, and security being the main one.
Right. Well, it's interesting. Two things that you said. One I'm going to give an example of, but the other one is earn. So whenever I work with anyone, when I'm qualifying them through the process to see how I can understand and learn, I say, look, even though you don't have an agent already, because some people don't, I say, just because we had this conversation, I don't expect you to work with me. I tell them I want to earn the right to represent you.
Yeah.
My team and I will demonstrate that. And if you feel like we're the right fit, then we've earned it. I never asked for it. And that's always something. So you using that word, this is our first interview. I haven't heard her say that before, but that's my philosophy. I don't expect anything from anyone. Yeah. I earn it. And the other thing is if the people I'm looking to work with don't fit my philosophy, I don't work with them, right? There's a way to go about transacting the right way. And when you have to earn it, you also see if who you're trying to earn it from is in alignment with you.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I mean, and I say too, I'm very fortunate. I have an amazing book of business and clients that I get a ton of referrals, and I have a lot of people I get to work with, but I work with people who want to work with me because I'm going to give you everything I have. Yeah. And that's exactly how you operate your business. Yeah. When someone is working with you, they get you and they get your team they get that elite experience.
The other one is the security. So even though you have the best security out there, I'm so paranoid when it comes to money and loss, because there was a coaching student of mine a couple of years ago, because I also coach people in real estate, but to work with people, not like how do you make a phone call when you're talking to escrow, that's different, that's the semantics, but how do you work with people? And I remember she told me that something happened and they lost a six-figure wire, over $100,000, which I'm sure you've seen or heard in your experience.
Yeah.
Might not have happened here, or maybe it did, and then you changed all your principles because it's such a big deal, right? Not to answer specifically if it ever happened here or not, because so many people have experienced it regardless. It's something that happens in the industry. And there's so many shysters out there that know how to scam. And I've never heard like secured, right? Insured. I never heard that. Insuring that. So before we wrap this up on our last question, explain the insurance, because I'm so paranoid about that. I have one of my assistants on the phone with our client, calling escrow at the same time, confirming the account numbers, period. No exception.
Always, though,
ever.
No matter how many layers of protection that we can put as a company, it's still important to do those things. So there are definitely, it's like an onion, right? We have layers and layers and layers of protection. We have found the best ways to protect our clients and ourselves, like I said, certified ID specifically, and we actually teach a course just on certified ID so agents can explain the importance of working with a company that has that.
Absolutely.
So there's lots of that. One of the other things I would say too is we have something called a seller protection plan. Our seller protection plan is an E&O policy for our sellers on their primary residence. Now, we pay a lot of money to have this through Crest Insurance, actually. We pay a lot of money to have it. No one's ever actually had to use it, but sellers on their primary home, when working with us, can enroll at the time of opening escrow in the seller protection plan. And you know better than anyone, sellers are the ones who are the most vulnerable at the end of the transaction,
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is a layer of protection for no upfront costs that they can enroll in that will cover them up to 6 months after closing, $25,000, say something wasn't disclosed, anything like that, that they would just have to pay a small deductible if they had to use it.
Wow.
So these are just little things that I think all add up when it comes to security, protection, everything. But it is so important to get on the phone and talk to the escrow officer and confirm the instructions. Even though we have the most authentic and secure systems to do that, it's just, you have to be safe, and there's so much going on right now.
Diligence has to be everywhere.
And it only takes one deal to shut down a company.
Yeah.
So we are very, very adamant in our in our systems.
And the last thing that I want to talk about, now we know a little bit more about Foundation Escrow, but the education pieces, right? The things that you do, the creative, the crafty things, again, not just, oh, I want to buy a house or I want to sell a house. Sometimes people want to, but they don't necessarily have the traditional means to, right? So you mentioned when we were off screen a moment ago, like an education series that was going to come up. What was that all about?
Yeah, so I think I say this about agents and I say this about transactions. Everything, it's not cookie cutter. Every deal is different. Every agent is different. The way people operate is different. One of the things we're rolling out next month is going to be with one of our veteran escrow officers. She does a lot of creative deals. We're talking like marijuana transactions, bulk transactions. If you can escrow it, she can do it, is her motto. So she's going to put together a workshop just to educate your agents so that there might have been something that never came across their plate, and now they have an opportunity to bring a solution if it ever does. So that's going to be coming up, and I think that education is so important. I lead with telling people that if I can educate you and give you value, it's so important. It's so important.
The biggest thing with that is, again, I've been practicing in residential real estate since '93, and I've been fortunate to, I don't even know how many, it's well over 1,000 properties that I've built, right? But I'm still learning.
Yeah.
And right now I just picked up a new mentor who's been in the commercial space forever, but he basically does land segregation, right? So he'll understand what this piece of dirt can do, and then over time show you how to change everything so that you can increase the density. So you could have a piece of dirt, a house on it, and it's worth X, and within a 2-year period, it becomes Y, and that Y is exponentially more than X, right? So I am constantly wanting to learn, because the more I understand, the more I can explain, the more I can explain, the more I can pique interest. The more I can pique interest, then people come to you, right?
I would agree with you so much. I think one of the things that sets me apart is I'm so curious and I'm so willing and wanting to constantly work on like self-improvement. For me, I love going to caravans and listening to speakers and just picking the brain of elite agents or just even new agents, right? What are you seeing? What are your struggles? Because I like to find ways to fill in those gaps. And I love picking the brain of, just different lenders, right? What are some creative ways you're seeing to help clients that we live in California, we live in San Diego, one of the most expensive cities in the country. How are you finding ways to help set people up for success so that they can own a property here? Getting creative with seller financing, getting creative with, seller buy down rates, and understanding what those programs look like. You and I had such a great conversation at your open house, although nobody else came except for me. It was something that I learned. You explained one of your secrets and one of your ways that you went outside of the box to set your clients up for success, to get them to be able to afford that. Because we know that people have this dream to want to own a home, but when it comes down to the scary fear of what the rates look like, even though it's stabilized and that is what it is, it's like, okay, that's the rate, but let's work backwards. What's your monthly payment that you can afford? Let's work here and see, oh yeah, I met with this guy, there's this arm rate, you're not gonna find anything better.
Nope.
But you took the time, and I will never forget that conversation because light bulb went off for me to want to learn more about certain things so that I can help fill in the gaps. So I think I'm so curious and I'm always wanting to learn things. And yes, I can be an expert at so much, but there's so much that I have this pocket in my brain that is just like, tell me more, I want to know. So I ask a lot of questions. I read a lot of books. I should say I listen to a lot of books. But yeah, I mean, there are so many ways to be creative and fill people's dreams.
I like to fill in gaps that other people aren't thinking of, because again, that's what separates, right? And that day that we spoke, as we're recording this right now, things may change in the future, but this institution that I found, because I called 40 lenders, 40. 40. And it was when interest rates had gone up to 8% for a little while in 2024, and I got fed up. And I'm like, is everyone the same? And then the thing that you need to understand about a mortgage is either the bank or mortgage company you're going to work with is going to sell it, right? So they have to package it according to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac rules, or Penny Mac, depending on whatever the loan is. and then it has to fit this box, and they sell it, and they can't do very much with it. But there's a term called portfolio. If the institution, the bank or the credit union will portfolio a loan, that means they keep it, which means they can kind of create their own rules because they're not selling it to an investor. So I can't tell you who that lender is because you're going to have to call me, and maybe I'll twist your arm and we'll work together, right? But if you want to know these things and save a percentage, like 1% to maybe 1.5% on the median price point right now, last month it was hovering at $1.10 million. 2 months before that it was $1.50 million. But just for instance, take a $1.5 million transaction at 20% down with 7% interest rate, no HOAs and all that stuff, but principal, interest, tax, and insurance, your payment is a hair under $10,000 a month, okay? Now imagine saving 1 to 1.5% off of that. And then when the 30-year does fall, the fixed rate, then you can refi for more stability. But why not save a lot of money in the interim? Those are the things that I think about. Those are the things that I work to pass on. So we'll talk in the next series because we can keep going. But again, I'm Stephen Wenner of Whistle Realty, brokered by EXP, with my fantastic host, right, Madison of
It was such an honor. It really was. And
Thank you.
I have only but the best things to say about you and your team, that it's truly an honor to work with you guys.
I really appreciate you, and likewise. So
Thanks for having me.
for sure. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon.